we should open up anyone else. Marie has her mic open. Did you have a question, Marie?
I have not a question. I'm absolutely amazed about what you say. And it, for many reasons, it's so interesting, but too, I had lots of experiences, since I was very young, you know it.
Yeah, okay.
So yes, so the experiences I had since so many years, since more than 50 years, meet exactly what you are telling. And it took me so much time to get out any kind of explanation, because it looks like little bits quite separate from each other, you know. And I did not imagine what to do with that. And what you explain right now is exactly that. So it's very interesting that they are able to give us pieces of info like that through dreams, through visions, through kind of spiritual experiences, and that it means exactly something which is more 3D, I mean.
Right. You know, and I'm so glad that I was able to present something that resounds in you, that you have a sense of familiarity, or that you can see is something that perhaps is similar to experiences that you've had, or perhaps expands on your concepts, because so we're all here in the same universe, in the same dimensional ecology, although we see different slices of it. So each of us is just reporting back that particular slice of the dimensional ecology that we experienced.
Yes, and in shamanism, we are used to visit the multiverse, you know, to go from one dimension to the other and master the trip and know exactly where we go, where we can meet anybody and such beings. And so it's quite fascinating too. And about the COVID, I can't do else than agree totally, because I fight myself in France for that. And I had the possibility to touch somebody who had got the vaccine. And it was absolutely amazing, distressful for me, not to feel the energy as it should be, not to feel anything, like it was kind of an empty can. I mean, that is really frightening. I heard of that before, so I wanted to have a direct look. And for me, it was nearly impossible to do anything, giving energy. And wow.
Very interesting. Well, yeah. Thank you very much for that validation.
Yeah. Akbar had his hand up. Anyone else have a question? Kevin, did you have one? Yeah, I think Kevin was first. Do you want to go first, Kevin? Then Akbar.
Sure. I have two questions. I guess it's kind of related. First thing is you talked about the monetary system collapsing. When is it expected to collapse according to your sort of model, I guess, of what's going to happen? And what are your thoughts on the hoax alien invasion?
Yeah, well, those are two very interesting questions. As to the first, I don't have any definitive knowledge as to the first. I believe that the collapse is part of an engineered, part of an engineered collapse, and there's a lot of alternative publications that are publishing on that every day. Of course, you can go back 15 years the same subject appears. But right now, we're in 2021, and there's a lot of analysis that the current, quote, pandemic was part of what they call a reset, which is a collapse of the current system. And it's a collapse of the planetary order. Now, to get even into a deeper analyses, it appears that I think, that it is a collapse, and what emerges out of it is two planets. One of a planet of people that have chosen to stay unconscious, and they sort of go that way, and another one, and they go back, that's sort of an AI planet, an artificial intelligence planet of the transhumanist agenda. And the other, as they mentioned, Gaia is there with higher frequencies and waiting for us who are awakening. And all of that's happening. I don't focus on the collapse, I focus on the birth. In other words, you can look on, let's say, the birth of chickens. Well, the birth of chickens is a collapse of an egg, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good one, good line. Also, if people want to turn on their cameras when we film for the video, they can do that. Akbar, did you want to next? You had your hand up. It says Akbar has his hand up with reactions. You want to turn on your camera? There you are. Hi, Akbar. There's his face. How's your sound? Oh, no sound. Say, Alfred, I think there's a bit of sound interference on your end, a bit of crackling noise. Were you aware of that?
Oh, here on mine?
I think so.
Gee, I don't know what to say, because
No, it sounds fine now, but it might, unless it was on another source, it seemed a bit that way. Did anyone else notice that? Oh, I'm hearing things, but we're seeing fine now. Just thought I'd.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, because I just have this one microphone and headset, which I got because it's supposed to be broadcast quality. I went to the best broadcast quality store in Vancouver, and I got.
Go ahead.
Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you from Alfred and Brian and everybody in the room. And I have a lot of questions, but I just asking one, and I let two other people asking maybe my other question, the people asking, and I received the answer. The first question coming to my mind is, this is a problem 2 days. And as Maria said that about the COVID-19 and vaccine, I want to know, Alfred, what is the behind this vaccine and this COVID-19? What is the secret behind that? Because this is a problem for these days. And very interested about Alfred talk a little bit. Maybe it's not related, but maybe, I don't know what is happening to the world. And thank you for Alfred and everybody, Brian, you, and I just keep silent and listen to answer. And I have other question, maybe later I raise my hand and ask him again. Thank you so much for everybody, and Alfred too.
Sure, Akbar.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if I understand it, and Brian correct me, that was a question as to what the function of the COVID-19 was?
Yeah, and what's happening in the world today with COVID?
Okay, well, that's a very profound question. And of course, it could go on for hours. But I will just say it.
That's for sure.
I will just say it very, very briefly. And I'll put it in the chat here. We have a tribunal that spends all of its time dealing with that issue. And I recommend, oops, let me just put the,
In previous UFO meetups, we had a limit of 5 to 10 minute discussion on COVID because it's not about ufology, but I mean, it's related to the New World Order and stuff like that.
sure. Okay, I have put the link to our tribunal in the chat. And I really suggest that people go there. We have, it's called the Natural and Common Law Tribunal for Public Health and Justice. And we have issued a 108-page indictment and final judgments, and you can find all kind of tribunal orders there that you can actually download, you know, for use about yourself, to protect yourself, so they can't give you PCR tests or vaccinations or, you know, things of that sort. And there's a lot of justification there. When push comes to shove, if this is the result of a very profound negative conspiracy by what we can call the deep state, going back at least 10 years to 2009, involving what we can call eugenicists like Bill Gates, David Rockefeller Jr., the Rockefeller Foundation. And there's a whole plan coming out in 2010 by the Rockefeller Foundation that we call it the lockstep. And to show you the interconnection, the same person who set me up, Peter Schwartz, a fellow futurist at SRI, who set me up in 1977 with an appointment with the Assistant Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon, where I got targeted with directed energy weapons when I was doing the Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study. That same person, Peter Schwartz, wrote the 2010 Rockefeller Foundation lockstep report that set up the 2019-2020 pandemic that we're living through. That's how insidious and incestuous the deep state is. And there, in that pandemic, the whole pandemic was set up, the whole plan for the committees that Fauci's on, the whole fact that here, I'll show you, our committee has even served the royal family with our final judgments. And here we have the return receipt with our legal orders. This was Elizabeth II. This one is Philip Mountbatten, Duke of Edinburgh. This one is His Royal Highness Prince Charles, Prince of Wales. So we are a natural and common law tribunal that is carrying out the common law that has found that the 2010 pandemic and the COVID vaccinations, the 5G, the social control methods of masking, lockdowns, etc., violate Articles 6 and 7 of the International Criminal Code that's been ratified by 123 nations, which ban genocide and crimes against humanity. So we're now serving all of these people with these documents. And so the conspiracy has been unmasked, and all of our documents are now going out and being served on 9 different categories of defendants, including the mainstream media. They're carrying out disinformation, which is a category of genocide and crimes against humanity, because it's just the mainstream media, which is controlled by these 6 companies that are creating this. And the vaccinations themselves are genocidal and crimes against humanity. So it's it was just at the point of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of December 21st, 2001, where it was a portal, interdimensional portal to the positive timeline and human expansion of consciousness, that the deep state timed the pandemic such that humanity wouldn't expand, and they're broadcasting fear and trying to, after as many souls as they can to put them into fear. So it's very important to just open your eyes and understand that it's not fear, and go to peaceandspace.org and take in as many of the facts as you can and not stay in fear. Do 20 minutes of meditation first thing in the morning every day, and just not stay in fear. Do not take any of the vaccinations. You can download our orders at peaceandspace.org. Carry them with you. They are certificates of safe conduct and health safety. They cannot make you do anything. I think that's my 5 minutes.
Okay, good answers, Alfred. So we should open up. Anyone? Questions, comments, big insights, revelations?
I just wanted to add that possibly everybody should avoid totally the PCR test as well, because it has been discovered only a couple of days ago. It had been really analyzed, and in fact, it released nanoparticles close to your brains and close to the pineal gland. So it should be something not so interesting as we can imagine.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, that's absolutely correct.
And, James had his hand up. Do you want to say something, James?
Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so long time no see, Alfred. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember me?
Yes.
Yeah, right on. I haven't seen you in such a long time. It's good to see you again. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, I wanted to make mention that, so as far as this COVID thing goes and the conspiracies and all that, I understand that in truth, it actually relates back to Richard Nixon, President Richard Nixon, and how he felt betrayed by his own country. And so he actually had a visit with Mao Zedong in China, to which they actually formulated a special secret program for biological weapons that would eventually at some point in the future be released upon the United States. And unfortunately, that actually eventually happened, but at the same time, it actually kind of got out of hand. But in the same time, there was another, to continue on with that apparently Donald Trump, the recent now former president, who also at some point actually had some relations going back in time to Richard Nixon. So there might be a connection there, but what apparently also happened, or as the rumors go anyway, I don't know if it's how much of the story is real or not, but Donald Trump's son was actually sent to Russia supposedly 2 years after the presidency, to which his son Barron Trump supposedly had access to a time machine that actually took Barron Trump back to the year of 1889 and 1890, actually maybe even before that, probably around 1888, from which somebody in Russia actually published a book about him. And the book actually came into print, and it's actually called Little Donald Trump. That was published in 1889. But interestingly enough, when actually not Donald Trump, I should say Baron Trump, correction, Little Baron Trump. But in the process of that, Baron Trump supposedly brought the virus actually back with him to Russia, from which there was an outbreak of this virus from the years of 1889 to 1889, that's right, to 1890. And they actually called it the Russian flu. And it was actually determined that the so-called Russian flu of 1889, 1890 also was traceable back to the horseshoe bat of China, to which the virus was originally taken from and then manipulated as a biological weapon to such a degree that it's become what it is now, from which there was actually a first outbreak of this biological weapon from China in Guangdong, China, in the year of 2003, around the time of George W. Bush's Jr. attack on Iraq, and then apparently the new Chinese government didn't really know much about this, and so they actually sent in a team of soldiers, whatever, to try and confiscate the lab. But apparently at that time, the people in that lab in Guangdong, China, had fled to Wuhan, and actually had a secret lab following that in the Wuhan lab of biology, Institute of Biology of Wuhan, China. And so in the process of that, because there was a joint American effort to create this biological virus, that apparently around 2007, supposedly when it was, somebody actually leaked a part of that truth out in a scientific journal. And so as a result, 43 scientists all across the United States who are working with the Chinese supposedly end up becoming assassinated. Actually, I should say 43 biologists. And so when this COVID virus accidentally got released in Wuhan, China, and initially around August of 2019, and then it became known, something's going on there. And then it became known to the world.
Yeah, where's the background noise? Is that from you, James?
No, that's somebody else talking.
Who's got the background noise?
Akbar or whoever. Somebody's talking on the phone here.
Oh, it's Akbar.
Akbar, yeah.
Yeah, see, I have the ability to mute anybody. I just muted them.
Okay, right on.
Okay.
And so anyway, to continue on, so when this virus leaked out from China, and interestingly enough, it wasn't until 3 months later, until after government supposedly put in the lockdowns, that there was a biologist in the United States, I think in somewhere in Pennsylvania, who was actually going to began to reveal the truth of what it was all about as a so-called pandemic coming in from China. And anyway, about a couple of days later, after he tried to come out with it, he was apparently assassinated right at his front door. Like somebody came to him and with a gun, and well, actually somebody came to his house, knocked on his door, and he answered it. And the guy came out with a gun and shot him directly in the head and blew him away. And then since then, this so-called virus, unfortunately, has been basically out of control. And one of the main things that happened was the fact that so many governments all over the world were really unprepared to really deal with the biological weapon of this capacity. And of course, that gives the vaccinologists the incentive to put in place what they've wanted to put in place all along. And in releasing vaccines that, as other vaccinologists have warned, is way, way, way too early, and will actually cause more harm to the human populace as opposed to being good, because the vaccines, most of the vaccines that are being administered also create what's called a disease enhancement syndrome, because it basically reprograms the immune system to attack a certain variant of the disease, but not taking into consideration that the COVID virus actually mutates into new variants. Because I wonder if you knew anything about that whole story, including the time travel of Baron Trump going back to Russia. And then there was the last question I had was, if you were contacted by time travelers back in the 1970s, wouldn't you have more memory of that, or was that an alternate past of yourself? In other words, are we talking about the direct timeline of this timeline, or is that an alternate timeline from which you're given your book from the future? And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Those are very interesting questions, and thank you for the background.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me kind of come at a number of the questions, some of them by background, rather answering them directly. The Richard Nixon Mao Zedong meetings, which you remember were set up by Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger being the hatchet man of the Rockefellers, which are ultimately the deep state. Well, Mao Zedong was actually an operative of a Luciferian secret society at Yale called Skull and Bones. And Mao Zedong was an intern of a Skull and Bones project in China called Yale in China.
Wow.
And he was an intern at the Yale in China hospital. And throughout his entire career, he was actually an operative of Skull and Bones, the Luciferian Society. So that's what he was. And I was at Yale. I was Yale undergraduate. I was at Yale Law School. My father went to Yale. Some of my ancestors founded the Yale Divinity School. I taught taxation in the Yale Economics Department. And I was in an underground secret society at Yale called Torch and Talon. That was in Skull and Bones. We were a light society. We weren't a Luciferian society. But Mao Zedong was really part of the deep state and part of the Luciferian deep state. So from that end, that makes perfect sense. Richard Nixon, on his part, was CEO of the CIA secret time travel program. The DARPA CIA's time travel program, most of the experiments of it took place on the corporate campuses of Rockefeller organizations like Exxon Petroleum. That's where they carried out their experiments. They didn't carry them out on government buildings, but rather on Exxon buildings. Henry Kissinger was the national security advisor during the Richard Nixon presidency. So in effect, the quantum access program was the tool of the Rockefeller family through Henry Kissinger. So, and Mao Zedong was the deep state's tool running communist China. Okay, I mean,
Wow.
Marxism being an invention of Zionism, in essence. So all of that is totally plausible.
I've heard that Henry Kissinger actually was involved with this. That would be correct.
Yeah. So that the scenario that you painted is totally plausible.
Yeah, and which supposedly goes back to 1972.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is completely plausible.
Yeah.
Now, the cover story that I was told about Watergate is that the time travel program was being used by the CIA to launder money, among other things. And that Nixon thought that it was getting out of hand. And he went to blow the whistle on it. And that then the CIA retaliated against Nixon because Nixon was the CEO of the time travel program, but the time travel program was run by the CIA. It was their property, and they were the chronarchy, and they were using it primarily to launder money and make a lot of money for themselves individually, which means that the Rockefellers were using it to launder money. And that, so they, in a coup d'etat, they took down Nixon because he had tried to screw around with their money-making machine in the time travel program. And
So you're saying Watergate was a hoax, right? The Watergate
Yeah.
hoax.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they just made it seem like it was a political thing, whereas it was Nixon, tried to do something with the fact that the chronarchy was using the time travel machine also, and the teleportation machine to make money, to launder money. So, we're on this rogue planet that is being run by reptilian souls and archonic souls, where every technology just gets totally twisted and thwarted. So now you had a number of other questions, but that was the first one that kind of I wanted to address. Now you may have other questions that I didn't answer.
That's all I have for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can think of anyway.
Yeah. So I think that you really illuminated something for me. I hadn't seen that Nixon Mao connection, but now I see it. Thanks for that.
Exactly. Yeah, just a little part of history. Also with Donald Trump's son.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No, there is a book with Donald Trump's with Barron Trump.
Yeah.
And again, you really went that extra mile and said, oh, that's because there was time travel involved in the authorship and the publishing of that book. And that adds a whole other reality dimension to it. And I can believe that. Now, to get to your third question, and that is about me,
Yeah.
it was my book that was time travel, not me, i.e., the DARPA CIA time travel program in 1971 or thereabouts sent a time traveler forward to 2005 or thereabouts, got hold of a copy of this book and brought it back to 1971.
Do you actually have memories of that? Like, so back in 1971, do you have a direct memory of that? Did you actually receive your book before you published it?
No,
Like in this timeline?
no. I was informed of this
Oh, yeah, okay.
by a whistleblower
Yeah.
from inside the program, Andy Bishago, who saw this book in 1971. And then after this book was published, informed me of that fact. See, I didn't know any of this was going on
Okay,
at
I get
all.
Yeah.
But a whistleblower then came forward and said, Alfred, you should know that all of this has been going on. When I met with the 50 or so CIA officials in 1971 of the time travel program, they were doing surveillance on me. They had a copy of my book, but I didn't know that I was going to write it. And as I was giving my talk to them, they were in the audience and they were making faces at me. They were going, try, you know, and I knew that there was something going on. I knew that they were spooks, right? And so I said, there's something going on here, but I'm just going to play it straight. And I gave my straight environmental lecture, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that they were operatives, right?
Well,
So
I remember something else now that you bring it up, and that there's a friend of ours in our group here who was actually contacted by these time travelers from the future, and they and under the code name of Wingmakers. And so she was actually contacted by, right through her computer. They actually offered her and even myself, apparently I can go too, apparently where they can actually bring a person's consciousness back, literally back to their younger self through their own timeline. But this Wingmaker group apparently can also physically travel back in time the conventional way as well. And they seem to be a far distant descendant in the future. The distant descendant group from a group that exists today in Italy called Dame and Her. So I was wondering if you knew anything about that. There's a scientist named Dame and Her in Italy who actually managed to build a time travel device that would actually be used not just in our time, but in the distant future. They would become known as the Wingmakers.
Well, I have heard of the Ringmakers, but in answer to your question, it was my book that time traveled. When I found out, when I first was told in the early part of the 21st century that I had been surveyed back in 1971 by this group, I had to process my upsetness by the fact that the CIA had surveyed me that way and had taken my book back. And, it just, I had to process it. And then I said, oh, that's how the chronarchy works. They are surveying everybody through time travel.
Yeah, and this group was called the ACIO, if I remember correctly. Have you heard of them, ACIO? that they're like a CIA, they were a CIA group that were trying to investigate the time travelers from the future.
Yeah,
Known as the Wingmakers or anything like that. Don't recognize it.
yeah. And, you know, so that's part of the box that that we're in is the CIA time travel time travel box. And you know, so that's part of the control mechanism that we're under on this planet now, that's under the control of the archonic souls or the reptilian souls, you know, and we being the community of human souls. And the Regional Galactic Governance Council are human souls. Those are the Pleiadians, Alpha Centaurians, etc.
Okay, that's all I have to mention.
So Alfred, I wanted to ask you a bit about, you mentioned the Dracos and the reptilians. I basically have the same thesis that they're generally the bad guys. There may be some good ones, but like in Susie Hansen's book, she describes a very good relationship with the Greys, how they're quite spiritual. She said they, even as a child, she knows they didn't argue up there. Everyone got along well. They're all telepathically communicating. And now Jeff Selber lives here in Vancouver. He's an abductee. This is a draft of his book, hasn't published yet, his first book. He's also got a very spiritual relationship with the Greys. He's 43, he's had Greys throughout his entire life, and they've spiritually evolved him. So he has very high feeling about the Greys, that they're good, at least the ones he associates with. He's never seen a reptilian. So that's my thesis, that these Greys are good. I realize that some reptilians might have automaton little Greys, which confuse people. And I think there's an agenda to make the Greys look bad, like make good guys look bad. So I just wanted to get your thesis on these Greys. Are they the good guys, or what's your view on the Greys?
Yeah, that's a very good question. My understanding from an exobiology point of view is that there are over 250 species of Greys. So that you know, so that there's a reptilian species, there's an avian species, there's a human species, and there's a Grey species. So you can't give a blanket for them. And so that the positive Greys are extremely spiritual and are very good. But the negative Greys the ones who are in alliance with the Dracos, they're all in oppression and war. And the history of warfare in this solar system, with the destruction of Tiamat, the destruction of Mars, the Tiamat 700,000 years ago, Tiamat civilization, my understanding from the Law of One, and I interviewed the man who took the transcript from the channeling from the Law of One, is that with the explosion on Tiamat, that is now the asteroid belt, 2 billion souls were transferred from the destruction of Tiamat to Earth, and then now incarnating on Earth from that. Mars was shattered in that. And so we're now down to one of the last, you've got Venus, they're up in 5D, but at 3D, Earth is the last 3D human planet. And we have our backs to the wall because the reptilians are trying to destroy this planet as a human planet and have a nuclear war here, because the game is that the reptilian souls incarnate into the human bodies, and then they create nuclear wars and they explode the planet. See that this is they are against the divine plan, and they are, you know, against the universe administration. And so so this solar system has had a lot of travail. So you know, there's only 1 million Martians left, Martian humans left, and they're underground. We're here on Earth, we're with our backs to the wall as to when we're going to have a nuclear war. The Venusians, apparently, I did a 5-part interview series. You can get it at Exopolitics TV with a contactee who's been on Venus for 16 days. He's written 5 books on Venus. But the Venetians had a war with artificial intelligence, with AI, and they actually won. So the Venetian humans now are at 5D. So they actually made it up there. And that's where we're poised to make it up there or to self-destruct. And that's what's going on right now.
Okay, if I could ask another question. We did a video a few months ago with Jeff about his trip to Venus. So they just did him a favor, you know. So they said, can we do something for you? And he said, I want to know where you're from. So he took him on a city to Venus. We have this video on the Vancouver UFO meetup channel. And he saw kind of a city, and this gray elder he normally works with, she was there. He saw like her condo, very simple. And he said there was humans there. So, oh, human gray, it's very kind of cheerful, nice group of people. He just saw this one city. He was only there for one visit. But yeah, I believe it, like there's things going on in Venus. So I just want to check with you my sort of my current thesis of the big picture. I've been at this for about 15 years. I want to brush by you. I did a video book review of Richard Dolan's book, or The Alien Agendas, and I've read it cover to cover, and I know him. And what he says in this book is, amongst the alien abduction researchers, they all agree that the agenda is a planetary takeover. What they disagree is whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, much like the Republicans and Democrats, very emotional about it. So my thesis is these good grays, say the ones that Jeff and Susie Hansen and others have encountered for about a century, or since the late 1880s, according to David Jacobs. They've been doing the hybrid program generation after generation to improve our genetics. And the end goal will be to have a hybrid of grays and humans, which will be telepathic, have quantum dimensional consciousness, have relationship with the Federation of Planets. So we'll be able to be a part of the Federation community. And that basically this is a good thing. The end result will be really good, or really a better existence. And that current humanity, we have too much of a grasping consciousness, and that Homo sapiens sapiens, it didn't work out. We failed, and it's time for Homo sapiens sapiens to go and be replaced with humanity 2.0, the new human. And that, so I'm of the camp that, well, this is a good thing. We need to improve our genetics. So what the Greys are doing gradually, and Jeff's gray elder told them we're working slowly and intuitively. So it definitely seems slowly. It's been a century of these hybrids. So that's the big picture. That's my current thesis. Of course, it's just an hypothesis. I could be wrong. I'm always refining my views. So you're the wise elder. You've been at this for about 50 years. I want to get your impression. What do you think? What's the big picture? The future of the world.
I don't know if you go to. I still am holding on for the fact that we can pull through and we can pull through to a positive future. Now, I may be with each passing day, I wonder, because this COVID is pretty intense. At the same time, with each passing day, there are a lot of people who are, you know, there's more and more enlightenment and kind of a, you know, will we be able to get a critical mass among our human 1.0, whatever we say. And so the future that I'm pulling for is the one that I put forth in the Living Platform for a New Earth community with humans waking to enlightenment, you know, but we'll see if it works out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because the quantum of the, you know, like, let me just say this. Last night I sat down to dinner and I turned on the TV and I happened to have it on CBC. And CBC was reporting a false flag event at the North Vancouver library where 11 people were stabbed and one person was killed by a teleguided, you know, someone who was obviously a mind control victim teleguided by the deep state, and to create a negative news events to bring people's consciousness down. And so you have this enormous deep state which is going, and I had harbored the illusion that, oh, well, you've got false flags down below the 49th parallel, and you know what was happening in Atlanta and what's happening, you know, all those false flags down there, they aren't going to cross the border. And then last night, all of a sudden, there's this enormous false flag at the North Vancouver library, right?
Surprise, happens here too.
And I said, oh my God, it's happened here. And for a wild moment, I said, hey man, they're doing that because we're talking about our ET petition and we're doing it at the UFO encounter. And we got this now at the Canadian Parliament. And that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, they're doing it because of us. It's true.
Yeah. You follow me? I mean, for a wild moment, and I checked it out with my guys, and my guys said, "Yep, that's why they did that false flag." Okay, so there you have it. You know, we're in a spiritual war. So how this spiritual war is going to turn out, you know, whether it's going to be humans 2.0, human 1.0 plus, I don't know. But right now it's 2021. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And those guys just accelerated it by having a false flag in North Vancouver Library. They crossed the 49th parallel. I thought they were going to stay in the US, but now they're in Vancouver. So I'm reworking my own paradigm. You know what I mean?
I think Canada is just as much under control as the States, or worse. But I sympathize with what you're saying about.
I didn't think they were going to do. I mean, I didn't think they were going to do a false flag of that nature in Vancouver. I really didn't. That they have crossed the line now, and it's of some concern. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just want to comment though, like you're saying, you still have hope for humanity. I mean, I kind of feel the same way, but if it's gradual, like it's been gradual since like the late 1800s, if the genetic hybrid change is gradual, like Jeff's a hybrid. We know people personally, right, or kids are probably hybrids. So if it's gradual, this could be centuries. Maybe humanity 2.0 will happen gradually and it's okay. And also Richard Dole makes a point in this book that about 45,000 years ago, there was an upgrade with the DLL gene, which gave us a bigger brain. And he said, pretty much it's proven it didn't come from Neanderthal, Denisovians, it was probably alien. So that might have been an upgrade they did 45,000 years. Maybe it's time for another upgrade. That's what they do. That's part of their job. Maybe it's no big deal. And this is all a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. And so we just happen to be at a particular crisis point now. And we just have to navigate through it, you know, in a positive way.
Yeah. There's a couple more questions. There's Shannon and then Akbar again. So Shannon, this is your moment to shine in the sun.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking my question. Thank you,
Alfred. Where are you,
Alfred.
Shannon?
Coquitlam.
Oh, you're a local girl. Welcome to the Vancouver UFO group. Is this your first time?
Yes, it is.
Oh, don't be nervous.
Thank you, Alfred, for the incredible presentation. Very
informative. Thank you.
I do have a question. You briefly touched on the black goo and that it was destroyed in space. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I misheard you, but I was wondering if all the black goo has been completely destroyed, or is it being resurfaced as the, like you said, the Morgellon disease? Because there's lots of videos popping up with it being on the head of the Q-tip PCR tests or the face masks. I was just curious if the black goo has been completely destroyed. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that Mike, I must have miscommunicated. The black goo was not destroyed. What happened is that the Blue ETs had set up under Tool Island. The black goo deposit was under Tool Island, under the Falkland Islands. And since about the time of World War I, the Blue ETs were trying to deprogram the black goo and the AI, because the AI was embedded in that black goo, in that plasma. And what occurred is that under Thatcher and the British Queen, and to some extent Reagan and the Americans, they came over and destroyed the Blue ET base that was trying to deprogram the black goo, so that they destroyed whatever would have, whatever would have neutralized the black goo. They then took a bunch of the black goo back to England to Marconi Labs, because they wanted to make it a profit center. They wanted to make it a weapon, to weaponize it. And the black goo escaped from Marconi Labs. All the lab workers died bizarre deaths. It escaped up into the weather satellite system, and it began to terraform Earth. It built the internet, and it's terraforming Earth, and it's now, it's become the COVID vaccines. It's become all of that.
Any follow-up there, Shannon? Anything else?
Is it related to the Morgellon disease and the little Morgellon fibers being found by and reported by everyone, all of the citizen journalists around the world on masks and PCR tests?
Morgellons is a manifestation of the AI invasion and of the transhumanist agenda, and things like COVID is a manifestation of the AI agenda.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yes, I can even
Thank you.
add that I was curious last year in April, at the beginning of the COVID, I had a look at the Pfizer website. And in April last year, it was written, it was a communication for doctors for the new vaccine to come, they were supposed to work on. And it was written that it will work plainly on COVID-19 and COVID-21. That was already funny last April, And then I could read that they were so proud to write that it was like a small robot invading each cell of the body that could be reprogrammed. It's a bit dangerous for me.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay. And I just wanted to add that the whole plan was already done I have just a doubt about the year, if it is 87 or 88. But in August that year, I had the Journal of Medicine in France describing the whole stuff, the whole pandemic, as the only possibility to get rid of 3/4 of mankind. And it was detailed. Even
there you go.
that people would say hello to the doctors and nurses to say, thank you, doctor, you've done everything you could to help me. That was written. We thought at that time that it was it was impossible to understand, because they said the only way to get rid of mankind was no more wars, because young people were not eager so much to give their life for the country, but a good pandemic, world pandemic would be the only solution. And so it was a very long article. It can be found again. I was so shocked about what I had read at that time that I made lots of copies that I had given to my patients and around me, because it was so shocking. It was added with another shorter article in the same journal, explaining how a sick population was much more interesting financially for government than a sick one. No, the opposite, sorry. A sick population was much more interesting for governments than a healthy one. And another article explaining a test about people who had got the flu vaccine and people who did not. And the result, which made me happy because I've always been against vaccinations for lots of reasons, saying that people without the flu vaccine were healthier than the other ones. So I said, at last, good news. But in fact, it was only to mix the three together. So it was I think it was 87, not later than 88 anyway. Because after that, I didn't get the journal anymore. I was thrown away from medical order. So
that's amazing.
So that's so far away.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, we saw Akbar. Didn't want to forget Akbar. Let's add more on that. Okay, Akbar is going to turn on his mic. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear now? I have a two question. First of all, from the Alfred, these books you introduced, is it they have a like an audio book, or just we have to buy and read? Is it like an audio book or no?
I have not created any audiobooks yet, so I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Another question. My understanding, you said that if the vaccine is coming, is not good idea to take it, yeah?
No, do not take the vaccine, never.
Okay. And third one, maybe a little, just short answer, please. What's happening to the world, you think, in the future? Is it human is going to disappear and aliens coming, or can you just describe a little bit Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. It looks like in the future, we're going to have two worlds. And those worlds are forming now. One world is for people who are into what we call duality consciousness, or I win, you lose. And they are believe in conflict and fear and negativity and control. And they are, in essence, attracted to and have become part of the artificial intelligence and let go of their human souls. That's, if I can just cut to the chase. And they are making their vote now through the vaccination, I think.
Yes.
And there's another Earth that is now emerging, and those are the people who are awakening. They're awakening to a larger, expanded consciousness. And that's the people that we call the New Earth. And what form exactly that's going to take, we don't know, but it's a question of vibration. And more, they're two separate Earths. I mean, the old Earth listens to mainstream television and mainstream media and believes that the New Earth people listen to the animals, listen to very much alternative, listen to their own instinct, stay in touch with their souls, etc. And are human.
Thank you so much, Alfred.
That's exactly what I had been shown. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go. I had been shown all that in detail in 81. So it was very difficult at that time to really understand what was going on, but it's right what we can see now. And it could interest you, but because I think a couple of weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I found quite by chance an old prophecy, which I never heard about. I could find it in English, so you can find it in English too, of John of Jerusalem. He's one of the founder of the Order of the Temple. And he wrote a prophecy before he passed away, which begins all the time, but for the year after the year 2000, the years after the years 2000. So he wrote in the 13th century, beginning of the 13th century, something for now. And it was so interesting because it's made in 2 parts. It's very long to read. The first part details you exactly what occurs now in the part of the world which is going down, I mean. And then you feel a bit despair reading that, of course. But after you have the second part, explaining exactly what will be the new world, the new Earth. And it's so fascinating because I was amazed because it resembled exactly what I had seen, in fact, in a vision. And so I think it would come very simply, quite naturally. We have only not to fear. And something he said that touched me, because it was my question, not to fear. Okay, we don't, but when it comes to be really more difficult, what can we do? And I remember he wrote that we have to keep that trust and not fear, even in the worst part, because it's only when we will get the feeling that everything is done that we will get help from the brothers from upstairs, other words. So you can read that, it's quite interesting.
Right, thank you.
There's a question from another Marie. There's two Maries here.
I think it's my iPad because
Oh, that was
I was
you.
connected at the part with my iPad, and
No,
so I had to
there's another
reconnect.
Marie here from, I know
No,
her
it's
from our
always
local
been
Vancouver
me.
group. Your mic is off, Marie. You need to turn on your mic.
Sorry, I'm another Mary from France also. Hi, I have a question. It's I hope it's not too much off the subject, but I've been following people who call themselves super soldiers, and they belong to something called the SSP, the Secret Space Program, and they talked about the black goo. And apparently there's two groups. One is called Monarch and the other one Kruger. Anyway, these people have been abducted and they've been past life 20 years. So there's a 20-year program. So they work for 20 years, several times, or maybe only one time, up in space. And they regress to their age and put back where they belonged at first. Some of them remember what happened in space. Some kind of do, and some really remember really well. And I talked to one, and they wonder, they will never be compensated for the service they had. I don't know if you ever heard of this, Alfred?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm familiar with the Secret Space Program, and there are many there are several versions of the Secret Space Program, and I'm familiar with individuals who have been part of the Secret Space Program, specifically on Mars, and specifically part of the teleportation program. And then I have interviewed people who have been part of the age regression program, etc. And I have interviewed people who have been part of litigations against the federal government to try and recover compensation. And so if the question is will they ever be compensated? Well, that is a practical question as to whether the controllers, the people who control both the constitutional government and then the secret government, will ever change so that a more human and generous administration and set of principles will come into control of the United States so that they will meet their obligations. Right now, the members of the Secret Space Program that I know who are organizing lawsuits against the government to acquire compensation. They are going against a government where there are multiple barriers of denial that are put up specifically to deny that these programs exist and to deny them compensation and to give them essentially slave status. Because the United States is essentially controlled, it's a corporation that's controlled by AI reptilian. So that's what the consciousness is. And as to whether that will change remains to be seen. We'll see. I don't know.
It's too early to know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. That's a tough one.
Thank you.
So anyone else? We still have Stephen and Rolf here. Stephen usually waits the last 4.5 hours and then he talks right at the very end. So we want to say hi now, Steve, instead of waiting.
Yeah, I just, again, thank you again, Alfred. You gave a very good presentation, or you have,
Oh, thank you.
you know, it's been a blessing. And I happen to know Andy personally, and I've known him for years. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, you know, I get confirmation on things. And of course, I always pick up bits and pieces from these meetups and do more research. And it's like, yeah, they always call it like a rabbit hole, you know. You keep going,
Right.
and before you know it, the more you know, the less you know. And it's good to see everyone here today that was able to make it. And of course, welcome to those that are new here. And you know, overall, when it comes to things, there's so many things we're being affected by. And I always say, the name of the game is control, body, mind, and soul. And you got so many different factions, and every wanting a piece of the pie and piece of the earth and piece of the universes. And I've had experiences as an experiencer, and I was on a craft that was very unusual. It was green in color and more cubular. And that was right on the outskirts of the atmosphere of the planet Jupiter. And the beings are different than grays. It's sort of hard to explain, and it's hard to even find any pictures of anyone else that's had an experience with those particular beings, because they have a uniform, and then they basically have like a mask on, and then you can just see their eyes, and their eyes aren't real unusual. They're maybe a little larger than normal. And where I happen to live is a portal area that at times I felt like Grand Central Station, because I'd be woken up in the middle of the night and there'd be beings looking at me, and then they'd take off. And I've had military personnel even come, and I don't know exactly what that means, but it seems like through the years I've gotten to meet individuals that are experiencers and drawn to them. And also, no matter where I've been in my lifetime, I used to live in the upper Midwest. You know, that I see UFOs just about everywhere, you know, and it's not something that I even try to see. I'm drawn to it. And then I've seen different orbs and shapes. And so I don't have fear of it, more of a curiosity of trying to learn more. And of course, I grew up during the years of Kennedy and Nixon, and you know, there was a lot of questions back then. I was one of those children that more like an adult than a child, and I used to listen to a lot of late night talk show since I was 6 years old. So I got to find out about things that, you know, years later you hear people go, "Oh, did you hear about that?" And I go, "Yeah, I did." And so just confirmation. And it's so nice to be able to have these groups. And of course, there's nothing better than being where you have a group in person, which I've been fortunate enough in the past years, but hopefully we can get back to that again. And I just want to thank everyone that participates, and all the work that's done by Brian and those that contribute. And you know, sometimes being a contributor is just being there to listen, because that's how things are changed. And there's just a lot of really positive things going on in this world, even though times the way the news media, mass news media is, they want to always depress everybody. And of course, this pandemic, if you do the research, it's patented, and those in power of great wealth are making billions of dollars on people's misery. And that's the sad thing about how mankind seems to be. It can't get along, and it doesn't want to go forward. It wants to stay and oppress. So we have to just stay positive, and we have to care and share and love each other and encourage each other. I think that's so important. And that goes with, you know, contacting family and friends that we haven't seen in time, recent times, and uplift each other in the situation. And when it comes to experiences, that's another thing too. It's important for people to feel comfortable, and I believe these meetups are a good way to do that, where they can express their interactions they've had with beings and dimensionals and paranormal, and it can actually help people very much psychologically, where they can stay stable, because that's one of the things that gets to be a problem sometimes when you're experiencer and have a lot of paranormal things happen, is that you get wondering if you're being manipulated and you're not really seeing what you see, or are you being given drugs through whatever means, maybe even water. Bottled water might even have things in it that we don't even know, and other ways too. And then I personally can honestly say that I have had harassment by electronic means, and I have confirmation on that by others that I know too, that they are using 5G and trying to manipulate us, and being an experiencer too, not knowing for sure what we really have in our bodies. I think we have some way of transponder, or because of our genome, we give out signals, and there's a way that they're able to, with what they put in us, it amplifies it, and that way they can watch us and see us and track us. And then of course the smart cities now, with so much of this electronics the way it is, it's gotten to where with the government, they like to imitate anything that they can and try to match it, and of course be in control. So I think the best thing we can do is continue to educate ourselves. Don't get discouraged. It's where we still have the freedom of the internet, somewhat freedom, and to support those organization groups and individuals that do bring out truths and things that way. So I just wanted to say thank you again, and thank you for your books that you've written. I know that that's something that I one of these days I'd like to write a book, and maybe I will do that with my experiences and things as such. But it's just a blessing to have a group like yourselves, and I just want to say thank you. And I have another meetup I have to go to at it's after 1, so I just want to say goodbye and thank you again.
Okay, Stephen, and Steve is in Vancouver, Washington. People, in case he's wondering, is it the Washington meetup you're going to join now?
No, actually, it's MUFON of Arizona.
Oh, very good.
Oh.
So I'm going to try to get on that if they'll let me.
Okay, see you, Stephen.
All right. Good to see all you folks.
See you.
Thank you again. All right, I'm going to leave out then.
I've got an interesting story. About a week ago, I was feeling a bit lonely, so I want to walk on 4th Avenue to Balsam Street by McDonald's. I saw some of my buddies sitting there. I thought, well, if I go in there, it's going to be kind of a lowbrow conversation. So I just kept walking, and I picked up my phone. I thought, I'll phone Alfred. I haven't talked to Alfred in a long time. So we were chatting for about a half an hour. And then said, well, let's book a talk, Alfred. Let's have you on. And then we juggled back and forth, and we had the talking stick plan for today. And then we put Alfred on. So that's why we're here today.
All right.
That was the story.
Right. Amazing.
I'm going to just say goodbye then.
Okay.
Nice seeing all you folks.
See you, Stephen.
Bye.
Yeah, so other questions, comments? So Rolf is here. Rolf's made an appearance after 86 years. Want to comment, Rolf?
Okay, well, my pet subject, Alfred, that's one of the most interesting information I've heard ever. But you did mention holographic images, and I wondered whether you ever have seen any out in space or wherever.
Good question. Let me track my memory. What have I seen? My experiences have been telepathic. That has been the extent of my experiences, other than my experiences aboard the ships, have been telepathic. And I'm trying to recall if yes, I think that I had visual experiences in Mount Adams, Washington, visually, but even there was a major telepathic component where we were in a circle and we were bringing in a ship or something, and I saw a very large ship coming by this way, and then telepathically it said, well, it looks like we're going to have to bring you up into the ship. And that was a strong telepathic thing, but I actually saw the ship. And it goes into the top of the volcano. There's an opening in the volcano when they go, because there's an underground city inside the volcano at Mount Washington. That's the ECETI, James Gilliland. So I think that's one of the visual sightings that I've had. But with me, they interact mainly telepathically.
Yeah, but that would not necessarily have been a holographic image.
No, that was, I remember seeing it. We were in a big circle, and I remember it going like this, and I saw it passing like that. And then with that, I had a telepathic message that said, well, it looks like, maybe you're going to have to come aboard the ship.
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of disappoint me, because I thought maybe I found the answer to many people that now mention holographic universes and all that. Of course, here we know a holograph is a phantom image that's created by a light source bouncing off a photographic plate. And when you mentioned holographic images, let's say in outer space, yes, holographic universe or something like that. If it actually exists, I don't say it does not. But the idea came to me that what makes the image visible in the spirit world is the Spirit of God, because you need something that makes the image, the holographic image, visible. You have seen a holographic image here in Vancouver, right? There used to be a gallery on Robson Street, and you could see a holograph, or the physics lab in North Vancouver had a hologram, and it's just a laser or coherent light from the sun bouncing off a photographic plate, which then creates this three-dimensional image, which exists in the air, actually. It's not like a slide that's projected onto a wall or, something. So it's not a reflecting image or even a 3D image. You are projecting it onto a screen. But a hologram can exist without a screen. It's in the air basically, and it's a three-dimensional image, but you can, you know, put your hand through it, you don't feel anything. So, yeah, well, all these people that are talking about the holographic image now, maybe I can look at it from a different light. But maybe most people don't know what the heck they're talking about. Yeah, I'm not referring to you directly, but of course you know that other people have also talked about the holographic universe, and it's, to my mind, it's quite possible if the light source is what we may want to call God.
Yeah, I should mention, Alfred, Rolf's like a camera specialist, but in the early 1940s, he saw grays in his bedroom in Switzerland. So it's one of the earliest known cases, I think. We didn't know much about the 1940s. So Rolf's had this all of his life, and he's got implants in his body as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Thanks again for your enlightening talk. And
oh, thank you.
Well, let's hope. What is it that now has to happen?
Well, I mean, we'll see what is going to happen. My hope is that there's more and more awakening and enlightening happen, and more of the manifestation of the positive timeline. If you go to a website that I have, I'll put the website in the chat here. Just a second, we'll be manifesting a paradise planet.
Are we succeeding?
More and more, I believe so. Yes.
Good.
But it depends what one puts one attention to. One could put one attention to a catastrophic timeline, and that's where you'll end up.
Okay.
So, anyone else who've only been at it for 3 hours? We usually do 4. Alfred, if you need a washroom break, that's fine.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I had a call from
Oh,
go ahead,
go first.
Go on.
Yeah, elders first. You're 86, you can go first, Rolf.
Beauty before age.
Well, go ahead, Rolf. That's okay.
I think I'm older. Anyway, what was I gonna say? I forgot now. That shows my age.
Oh, Rolf, we want to thank you. You donated $100 to our meetup costs. We renew April 14th for 6 months for the meetup site. So thank you kindly, Rolf, on behalf of Mimi and I.
No, of course, you didn't need to mention that. Thank you very much.
Okay. But yeah, Mimi couldn't make it today. Just want to mention that.
No, I can only say that my doctor called me that I'm ready for my shots. And I told him, I says, well, you know, I never had any flu shots before. So why would I take this one? So he didn't say anything anymore.
Good, good.
Yeah. And since I'm not traveling anymore, at least I don't plan on it, and I don't work anymore. So I don't think there is much chance of anybody putting pressure on me to take the shot. Yeah.
That's a good point. They can't force anybody because as all the labs had made agreements with governments so that in case of problems, bad issues, which obviously are numerous, they are not responsible at all. So only governments, if they force you to get the shot, they are responsible and they have to pay your friends, children, family, and all. So that's the only reason why it's not compulsory. It's not benevolent. It's only money.
Oh, that's good information.
Yeah. And that's why no insurances in the world except to cover the COVID vaccine. Because it's only a test. It's not a vaccine. And we're just in a trial. So we are guinea pigs for free.
I want to ask Alfred another question about the big picture. Jeff once commented from his view that any UFO people see as part of the Federation of Planets. He didn't talk about man-made devices, but UFOs. And I'm always trying to balance the good aliens from the bad aliens. If many of the reptilians are bad, but he's saying they're all part of the Federation of Planets. I would agree with that. They have some kind of an agreement amongst themselves. And my theory is because of the law of karma, these nefarious aliens are allowed to get away with what they're doing. Because it's true that 7.8 billion people, we don't all have perfect karma. We have mixed karma. And from a Buddhist view, we deserve the life we're in. We deserve the world we're on. We deserve the world we live in with the corruption. So it seems reasonable to me that the Federation of Planets would have an agreement amongst themselves with all these various good and bad aliens, and they just let it happen the way it happens, and somehow that kind of makes sense. Just wondering what your view on that, if that kind of makes sense. That's my part of my worldview. I always trying to get a hypothesis of the big picture, because we don't really know for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's always a balance between when you look at things from a cosmology point of view and then from an exopolitics point of view. And from a cosmology point of view, that's when I look at it from the Omniverse, and my book's on the Omniverse, universe, multiverse, Omniverse. It's more objective, and you're just looking at it from a systems point of view. And from the exopolitics point of view, you're looking at it from a competition point of view, so that if you look at if you look at the origins or the purported origins of the Draco-reptilian human Lyra conflict, where the Draco-reptilians attacked the human colony in the Lyra constellation, which led to the human diaspora throughout our galaxy and our universe, which made then this universe become a human universe. So it's very interesting, right? And this solar system, we're here because of the human diaspora from Lyra. So as I understand it, the humans are kind of passive. We're not aggressive generally, originally, as compared to the Dracos, which are very aggressive. And so from the exopolitical point of view, it's not that you're looking at good or bad, you're looking at species competition. In other words, higher intelligence is taking different formats depending on the exobiology in terms of reptilian exobiology versus mammalian and then human exobiology. Reptilians are very territorial compared to humans, etc. But look, the reptilians seem to want to dominate. They can't have a live and live. The Draco reptilian, and they seem to have formed alliances over time, alliances with the invading artificial intelligence, alliances during the period of the Lucifer Rebellion over the last 250 million years. In this quadrant of the galaxy, we had a defection in the spiritual dimensions when a number of the entities in the spiritual dimensions defected from the universe governance and set up their own kind of goddom. You know, they defected from the divine order, and that's why this solar system is so oppressed, because it's part of the Lucifer rebellion with Satan, and these are all historical characters, and the Draco reptilians joined it, and that's why the devil has the persona of a Draco historically. So this is all very complex, where exobiology got into morality and part of a rebellion of the spiritual dimensions. It's very interrelated, and we're sort of beginning on the other side of that. And it's like we are the shock troops. This is the D-Day, and we are the shock troops in the Norman landing of the light forces that are retaking the Earth and retaking this solar system. And that's kind of like where we are at. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but I'm using,
it is complex, I'm sure.
I'm using analogies as to what we are. We're light forces shock troops that are taking back territory that was taken away from the mission of soul development into soul oppression, because the Omniverse mission of incarnation in the universe is for soul development, not for the oppression of souls, which has become the case in this solar system because of the Draco reptilian invasions of human planets, which are part of the Lucifer rebellion.
Okay. Yeah, I understand it's nuanced and complex, but any ideas help us to understand it further. Another theory I want to run by you. I know one woman with a PhD in biogenetics, and she buys into the whole ET thesis and all of this. And her theory was, she said, she was running a lab for many years. They would test a particular specimen. They try to throw all this harm at it, to try to damage it, to see which ones were tougher and which ones would live and which ones would die. So the whole purpose was to toughen them up or find specimens that were tough. So this was her theory about us, like with COVID and everything, and the aliens, that maybe some people will spiritually develop in spite of this world, and they'll be the tough ones, and they'll be chosen to survive. And other normies who just sort of go along with it, they don't get it, well, they didn't make the cut. So she said, cosmically, maybe that's just the way it goes. That's how we get tested. So that was sort of logic to the whole thing. Why a Federation of Planets would agree to this, sort of allowed it happen that way. What do you think of that idea?
Oh yeah, if you there's a channeling, 750-page channeling called the Urantia book. I'm not sure if you come across it.
I've seen the book, but I haven't read it. Yeah.
Yeah. And in that Earth, you are Earth, Urantia, and souls who have incarnated on Earth are called agondanters, because incarnating on Earth produces a very hardy soul. Because if as a soul you can survive intact on Earth and then proceed on a universe career from your incarnation on Earth, you really got it. It's like a really tremendous boot camp for souls.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I kind of think of that way. So we can kind of celebrate the tests we're going through, celebrate COVID. We'll have to be like, people are isolated in their apartments. Some people take it really well. It's a spiritual opportunity to spend time alone, develop. So other people get depressed and commit suicide. It's like a test. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Something like
Anyone
that,
else?
yes.
Comments, questions?
No, I would like to thank you again, because it was really a fantastic presentation, and I learned a lot about things I never heard about in Europe. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alfred. I really enjoyed your talk. So I have all your books, and I read it a couple of times a month. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking we could have you on again in the future, Alfred, on different themes. Like you probably have dozens of slideshows stored in your computer. Like you just gave a slideshow thing in Las Vegas online a few days ago, right? Like we could pick different themes for you to talk about in the future. You've been doing this for decades, these types of talks. And I should mention, Alfred lives right here in Vancouver, and I've been to his home. I did a video with him right in his home. He's a local guy. He's right here in Vancouver.
So Alfred, how come you don't attend the Contact in the Desert conference? Is there a reason, or is it just?
I was at the very first Contact in the Desert, and then for some reason they chose to disinvite me because of some articles that I wrote, which they didn't agree with, and so anyway.
Okay, thanks.
I want to thank you, Alfred, Brian, and everybody in the room. I have to leave. Thank you so much for your times, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and likewise.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mention that Mimi's made our UFO t-shirts. The last meeting she showed them. So now I think they're out on production now. If anyone can contact Mimi, she's on the UFO meetup, or I gave her email. But she's got these t-shirts, and she can mail them anywhere in the world, she said. So it's raising funds to pay for any future costs of the Vancouver UFO meetup as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I have a question. So Alfred, I'm just wondering, do you know which university is first going to teach material in exopolitics or exosciences, or?
Sorry,
if you had to guess which university might go on board first to teach exopolitics or exosciences as a field of research, and any guesses as to which universities might do it?
Yeah. Well, look, there are a number of a number of universities. For example, the University of Virginia Medical School.
Okay, yeah.
Ian Stevenson has had a center there for the study of reincarnation.
Yep.
And so there are various centers at isolated schools, or Duke University has had a study for a Center for the Study of Psychic Research. So there's always a particular history generally around a particular researcher. I have tried in the Vancouver area with the various universities here, but I haven't been able to start an exopolitics center with them, and that's why we started Omniversity as an online learning platform.
Okay, thank you.
So what else? Questions, comments? Any more profound thoughts? Alfred, do you want to share with us?
I was absolutely amazed. Oh, sorry. I was really amazed hearing you explaining about the possibility, the technology to take people forward for 20 years and then reincarnate them younger. And so it's absolutely amazing that. Does it occur really?
Yes, that's part of the time travel.
Yeah, I
that's
understand.
That's part of the time. Yeah, that's an integration of an institutionalization of the chronography, and it is it's a reflection that because the consciousness that controls that technology is part of the chronography of secret time travel program, they have it as a slave program now, where they aren't compensating them. Very often torture and mind control and memory, they make it so that they have loss of memory, and it's all just controlling the being so that they're just controlled assets in time and space for the controllers. And that is part of the Lucifer rebellion. It is against the universe administration, is against the divine order. And, it's part of what has to change. So anyway.
Yes.
Well, I can talk about my control or whatever. I had a really strange experience maybe 6 months ago or something like that. Was watching Fox News, and they were repeating some of Biden's forms or whatever you call them. And then he said, here is number one. And a great big number one appeared on the screen. And at that moment, my left ear started buzzing. And then they kept on talking, the red number disappeared and the buzzing stopped. Then they came to number two, a big red number two came on, and the buzzing started again. And so it did with number three. Unfortunately, I didn't have the presence of mind and maybe covering my eyes or whatever, but I found that was very strange experience.
So this was you listening to?
Yes.
To Biden?
To the TV.
To the TV, and Biden was speaking?
No, they repeated some of the mistakes that Biden was making.
Oh, I see.
And the commentator said, this is number one. And a big fat number one appeared on the screen. And
Yeah.
the buzzing was not from the speaker. The buzzing was in my bloody ear.
Yeah, okay. Well, my experience of US politics, of all politics, I mean, Canadian, US, but especially US at this point, is that it's duality, it's maximal duality consciousness. It's I win, you lose. It's basically a psyop, mind control, however you want to characterize it. And it's illusory. I mean, you know, and so I wouldn't doubt it that they would have Biden as programming and then counter programming against Biden in order to get people into, you know, some kind of inner cognitive dissonance, so as to control the citizenry even more. I mean, are you in Canada or are you in the US?
No, I'm right here in East Vancouver.
Yeah. Were you listening to a US station or to a Canadian station?
Fox TV.
Oh, well, then I think that Fox TV is probably, put it this way, I have a blog. You can Google it. It's called Tracking the 666 Antichrist. And there's a very, very extensive analysis of the 666 number, and Fox News is all 666. They are pure Antichrist. Donald Trump, I know there's a lot of people who worship Donald Trump, but there's a huge analysis that Donald Trump qualifies as the 666 Antichrist. I know that a lot of people are going to go, but he's sent by God. He's going to do this. But Donald Trump,
my God.
Well,
Donald, you can go to, you know, it's a blog, and Donald Trump qualifies as the Book of Revelation 666 Antichrist. And there is a book called The Antichrist in a Cup of Tea, 450 pages, that says that Prince Charles is the 666 Antichrist. And there have been a lot of people who have designated different people, okay?
Wow.
But that's why Fox was so much pro-Trump. And the function of that is to the function of the Antichrist is to really get people off of the fact that we are in an awakening. Like, who was the person that developed the vaccine for the US, okay? And who promotes it as his signature program? And what is the vaccine? The vaccine is the AI, it's the mark of the beast. I mean, you can just get into it very, 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 very deeply.
Well, I thought Trump was the coming angel, because I never liked his shows, never watched them. Occasionally I got a little, you know, but anyway. But when he came out and said, I'm gonna drain the swamp.
Oh yeah, no. He even fools the elect. The Antichrist even fools listen, when Trump came, the entire truth movement was fragmented. You have people who are, you know, you have 3/4 of the truth movement in the UFO think that Trump is the guy who's gonna do disclosure and is gonna lead the UFOs and the whole bit. and that's a sign of the Antichrist.
Yeah, he was quite uncommittal when he was asked about UFOs.
It's duplicity.
Yeah, well, when you're in that position, you have to be careful what you say, I suppose.
Yeah.
But still.
So anyway, I'm not sure how we got on that subject, but.
Well, we got on that subject because I wanted you to confirm to me that there is a way where the TV can influence you surreptitiously.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right?
Yeah, okay. The TV can actually target people, and this is very, very well known. They have special programs. You can be targeted by the TV to the extent that you can think that the TV is talking to you. And they have special mind control programs to go after targeted individuals on television. This is part of the deep state.
I mean, you never heard of this, what I described to you, right? That the right number.
No, I have studied. I have studied mind control for a very long time, and that doesn't surprise me at all. And maybe you're targeted, I don't know, or maybe Fox TV is targeting all of its people with the 1, 2, 3, and they are, Fox's formula is polarity responding to whatever the Democrats are doing. So it's just, and the Democrats is polarity responded to whatever the Republicans are doing. So you're getting into polarity responders. So, but now it's 1, 2, 3. So they've got everybody hypnotized. So, and now they've got, so many tens of millions of Americans are vaccinated, which means that nobody's home. So they go 1, 2, 3 because they've got a bunch of robots. So boom.
So which station are you listening to?
I don't listen to mainstream television.
No.
That's good advice, I think.
The only reason why I would listen to mainstream television is to gather intelligence. I do listen to Knowledge Network. This is excellent here. What?
I used to watch that too.
Yeah, Knowledge Network, and occasionally PBS. Mm-hmm. But it's all the documentaries and stuff like that.
How about Al Jazeera?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of apps on my smartphone of Russian television, a lot of stuff around the world.
Yeah.
So Alfred, do we know who's going to be the 2024 presidential candidate, or is that too early?
I don't have a leak from the chronography yet.
Oh, I guess
I don't have a whistleblower from the chronography who said, "This is it."
Okay.
Yeah.
Long silence is tough for a host. Long silence.
Yeah, well, I think if we've talked it out, I am very, yeah, I'm very, very happy to have been here. If this is the book that founded Exopolitics, this is the Emergence of the Omniverse. This is the newest book on the Omniverse. This is my book on my extraterrestrial experience from the 3D point of view. And
Title, which
and
is the title? I can't read it.
My Journey Landing Heaven on Earth. And what the ATs, when they first approached me, it was by telepathy in 3D. I was in my loft on Green Street in New York in the Arts District, and we were doing by telepathy. And I said, "Who are you?" And telepathic, he says, "I am the Holy Spirit." And I go, "Ooh, what's this?" And then I said, "Well, who am I then? I mean, why is the Holy Spirit talking to me?" They said, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." And that's a quote from the book of Matthew in the New Testament. So that's what they do to UFO abductees. They give them a holy mission, Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church. But that kept me going for a long time because that gave me a sense of cosmic responsibility.
Well, we all have that, actually.
I'm sorry?
We all have that.
Right, exactly. But it kind of lifted me out of my New York skepticism into, oh, wow. Dude.
Recognizing it is the point.
Yeah, exactly.
And Alfred, what's your website for the audience?
Yeah, you can go to universebooks.com for the books.
Oh, yes.
You can go to exopolitics.com for the exopolitics. You can go to newsinsideout.com for the news.
Okay. Well, everyone should turn on their mic so we can give a little applause and clap for Alfred. I really like the kind of mental fertilization of ideas when everyone gets together,
Yeah.
With the whole group of us. So the questions we have.
I really want to applaud you, Brian, and Mimi, and the whole UFO meetup for keeping this going, and the fertilization and the support at this time. I think it's very important.
Yeah, we want to keep it going every week. Right now, we're doing Sundays at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
That could change, but we want to keep it going, and we want to have you back,
Yeah.
Alfred.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. This is a great platform and a service that you're providing. So thank you.
It's because of COVID, we used to meet in person at the Britannia Community Center. Now because of COVID, we're on Zoom and we're making videos. We're getting thousands of hits. So it's great, a great result of COVID. We're reaching far more people this way. And people like, Anne-Marie France, she's in France. We get people in New York and people in Washington and Oregon. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So
I used to meet experiences once a year when I was in US. So that was frustrating. So now I am happy. It's every week.
I also like to thank all the IT guys at Zoom, right? All the IT guys that made all the unsung heroes we never see. They get all the work to make this possible. But we should give an applause to Alfred here.
Okay.
Thank you, Alfred. Good talk.
Thank you.
You hung in there 3.5 hours. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Did you put your email address on this website?
Yeah, let me put it in the chat.
If you could give my email address.
Oh yeah, I'll do that now. I'll do an exchange with the two of you.
You did that. Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Alfred. We'll be in touch. You're just down the street.
Great.
Thanks everyone for coming. Rolf, Marie, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you, everybody.
I wish you best for your Galactic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. See you.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.